Hello, and welcome to 9 to 5 Wellness Podcast. Today, we are talking about finding the common language and decoding fitness guidelines and goals. In this episode, we want to explore more about what the fitness guidelines are for adults and how we can translate complex exercise science jargon and terms for busy professionals into actionable steps, because that would allow you to confidently set realistic health goals without feeling so overwhelmed. That is one of the key takeaway I have working in clinical exercise physiology, that a lot of the patients come to me and they're like, oh, we have no idea what to do. Can you help us? So I have a very honorable and knowledgeable guest with us today who's going to help us decode everything. Our guest is Rick Howard. He's an associate professor of applied sports science at Westchester University in the Department of Kinesiology. He also serves as the sports performance coordinator and advisor at Westchester University. His teaching and research specializes in pediatric exercise science, long-term athletic development, and youth strength and conditioning. Welcome to the podcast, Rick.
Aisha, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. I met Rick very recently at the Medical Fitness Association Summit in Pennsylvania. I was presenting there, and Rick was also presenting there. And his talk on finding common language was geared towards fitness professionals. But as I was listening to him, I was like, you know what? This is perfect for everyday person who's also trying to improve their fitness level or their health. The end goal is that we extend our health span and lifespan, and we are able to enjoy the things that we enjoy doing, we are passionate about in the marginal decade of our life. And that's fitness is a vehicle towards that. And I was like, oh, all the things that you're talking about, Rick, you know what? That's exactly what my patients keep on asking me day in, day out. So I want to start with the basics, Rick. How do we define exercise guidelines for an adult regarding weekly aerobic exercise and strength training exercise at this time?
Well, it's a great place to start, and thank you for that question, because it goes back to the common language, because we really look at getting people to be more physically active. And being physically active simply means moving your body that creates energy. So you're burning calories and you're moving. So there's no time constraint for that. They can include activities like gardening, walking, being outside. But then what ends up happening with our physical activity guidelines is that we put exercise parameters on it. We say, all right, so to optimize your health through physical activity, you should meet these exercise guidelines. So you should do it for 150 minutes a week of moderate activity, meaning that you can do the exercise and you can talk continuously, but you probably couldn't sing for a long period of time. Or 75 minutes of vigorous activity, so you couldn't talk for very long at all without getting out of breath. So there are different ways of looking at that physical activity, but once we started putting a number on it, that number was only for aerobic exercise, which is the one for which we have numbers that people can associate with increased health. If we look at the other parameters of fitness, though, such as muscle strength, there are no time constraints. So if you decided you wanted to garden and let's say you're mulching and you're picking up the bags, you're carrying it around, and you're putting them down, that is strenuous physical activity. There's no measurement for that, but we do know that that really helps to increase your longevity. And the key factor is that for those starting a program, that's where the biggest gains come from. So I always liken it to, imagine if you're in school and they say, all right, well, you're failing this class and you need to get an A+ to pass. That's kind of what we're telling everybody. If you're not doing any physical activity, well, that's too bad. You have to get 150 minutes a week. Yeah, you can gradually work up to that, but that's the goal. But do you? Like sometimes the stress of some of these ideals turns people away from the very activity that would get them to be where they want to be. Like, what's wrong with gardening twice a week? What's wrong with just walking the dog around the block? If you enjoy it and you'll keep at it, there are so much better benefits. The saying is motion is lotion. If I'm doing something and I'm enjoying it, then that's also helping to reduce my stress level. If I think that I have to be meeting these targets that somebody has set out there for the amount of exercise I need to get to define my physical activity, then I don't enjoy it as much. And I think that's a really huge issue that we have is we don't set it up for people to enjoy it. It's like, this is what you need to do. And I'm like, yeah, all right. So one of the presentations I like to give, the main topic is, why do treadmills have TVs? Right? Like,
Yes,
we
I
should
love that.
enjoy exercise. We should want to go do it. But we're already admitting, like, look, we know this isn't all that exciting. So we're going to keep your mind busy with something else while we get you to do the exercise we want you to do, rather than saying, hey, you know what? You should really enjoy this. Like, you don't need TVs on the tennis court. You don't need TVs on the golf course. You don't need TVs in your garden. You're doing something that you like. So why can't we figure out how to make people like it? Because that's the main reason that you'll stick with it. So it doesn't have to be this big blown up thing that we say it is. And I mean, it's nice. I mean, there are definite reasons to do that for meeting certain health goals. But I think if we just got people out there and moving, that's where the biggest bang for the buck is, they would say. So if we had more of the population doing that, I mean, the overall cost savings, the overall mental benefits, the overall physical benefits would skyrocket.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I want to just add on to where you left off, because at this point where we are at, where we have in our modern lifestyle, there's a lot of stress. And we have sedentary lifestyle. Most of us who are busy professionals. Yeah, I mean, just adopting what you enjoy, even if it is for 10 minutes a day, or if you feel like, oh, you're enjoying it so much, you can spend an hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you're tending to your garden, just like you said, so a friend of mine, he loves landscaping. Like he just does his own house's landscaping, and he's always outside like Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, and he's spending like 2 to 3 hours outside those nights.
Oh, yeah. It's mentally cleansing too, right? That just out there being outside and doing what he loves to do. Just such a great feeling to be able to do that. So like, why do we have to say, well, no, you should be on that treadmill with the TV on it because that's what we've told you is good for you? Like, yeah, there are benefits, but the physical activity pyramid that they created has at the base of it all these different things that they think we should be doing, whether we want to or not. So one of them, for example, is parking your car farther away. And I will tell you that I would imagine 99.9% of the population wants to park in their own driveway. You don't want to park like down the street and walk back to your house, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. So like, why can't you put something in place to make the base of the pyramid what you like to do? And then build on that. So like your friend who's landscaping, you might find out, my legs get tired after an hour. How can I get better at doing that? And you say, well, here's a couple leg exercises that will help. Or say, what, my back seems to bother me after crawling around for half an hour. What can I do? Here are a couple stretches. Here's some mobility movements that you could do. And then your pyramid is foundationally set based on that information. There's another concept called physical literacy, which tells us that we should be able to move in a variety of ways on a variety of surfaces using a variety of implements, but that it's an ongoing journey. And it's going to change throughout our life courses. Most of the prescriptions for treadmill walking, for example, and I'm not knocking treadmill walks. Lots of people love it. That's great. Some people love to go outside and do it, and that's great too. But the thought process is find something you like, and then you might grow out of it. Like you might do rock climbing. And then all of a sudden, well, that was pretty cool. I climbed this rock that I wanted to do. Now what? Now what could I do? Like, well, I did that. That's kind of cardio, a little bit of strength. Maybe I'll do like a Tough Mudder race. Right. So you kind of just change it around, and then all of a sudden you start changing what your goals are. So the base of your pyramid will continue to change and adapt. A lot of times in our exercise prescriptions, we don't give room for that. We say, all right, here's your initial conditioning phase. Here's what you need to do. Our outcome goals, we want you to get 30 minutes of continuous exercise on some piece of cardiovascular equipment, add in some strength training to that, the last round of recommendations. where like it wasn't really emphatic for strength. And strength training has almost as much positive information for improving health, lifetime outcomes. You mentioned health span earlier. There's also strength span, and the strength span does show to be able to increase longevity. Plus, it helps. Like if you want to go gardening, right? If you want to do more landscaping, or if you want to pick up your grandkids. We always show that commercial from Germany where the grandfather trains with a kettlebell, not to train with a kettlebell, but because he loves picking up his granddaughter at the holidays of Christmas and picking her up to put the decoration on the tree, right? So that's like his why. So we have to really figure out like, what's people's why? What motivates you? What will get you out there to be active? Because that's the cool thing. We were talking earlier a little bit about, going to the beach. Maybe that's it. Years ago in a lifeguard, there was a guy that would come down every summer, and he had an illness that would keep him in the house almost all winter. So when he got there in May, he could hardly walk. But by the end of July, he's walking by himself. He's fishing, walking up and down because he was able to get out and go do something that he was restricted from doing the rest of the year. And like, that doesn't make any sense. Like he did a terrific job once he was down on the beach because he loved being there. So find out what people love. What's your why? What really motivates you to do something? And then just go do it and have fun with it.
Yeah. And I want to highlight and underscore something you just said, that strength training is going to give you the biggest, return on investment, the ROI, because it is one of the biggest markers of physical markers of longevity. The more muscle mass you have, the healthier tissue you have in your body, you're more metabolically healthy. And if you're starting out, if you haven't been active in a while and you're starting out, strength training is going to just show you results right away.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to explore something you just mentioned, that there's a pyramid, and we can go into the pyramid, maybe talk a little bit about like what that pyramid looks like. You establish that base of the pyramid depending on what kind of activity you like, and then you can build up on from there. So I just want to explore that a little bit more for our listeners and viewers to understand what we are talking about.
Okay, that sounds great. So the pyramid for physical activity, when it came out, prescribed what we should think about doing. So like chores were at the base of the pyramid, and it's also at the base of the pyramid for children and youth. I'm like, all right, so how many 10-year-olds are going to really rally behind doing chores, right? Vacuuming is on the list, and all these different things that, somebody probably came up with a list that these are great activities. When you look at how we categorize activity, and we're looking at some of those moderate activities, these are nice moderate activities. Are they things that people are probably going to want to do? No. Are they things that are, going to say, what, hey, every Tuesday and Thursday, I blocked off 20 minutes for additional chores because that's what I want, because they're just parked farther away from my house. And it also has like walking the dog. Like, and that's on the kids pyramid. I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to, like, depending on the size of your dog, you might not want an 8 or 10-year-old to be walking that dog either. So you have to kind of take this stuff in stride with what they have. And then they build on that. And largely it's all based on cardiovascular exercise. And then above that, they have, maybe some sports skills and some strength and a little flexibility on top of that. And then minimizing sedentary behavior at the very top of the pyramid. But, they're kind of sprinkling that in. Whereas if you created that pyramid with the base with what you want to do, so we could pick another scenario of what somebody's fitness goals might want to be. Maybe they're a golfer and they want to be able to drive the ball farther. Well, most people think that golf is a cardiovascular sport because a lot of times you walk. But if you look at the definitions of cardiovascular exercise, you're not getting into a training heart rate range when you're walking. It's a long, slow pace. It's great physical activity, but it doesn't really count as cardio. So a lot of golfers will say, I need more cardio so I don't get as tired walking. Whereas if you're walking the course, you're going to get better at it just because you're walking it. What's really happening, if you want to hit the ball farther, that's called repeat power. How quickly you can express your strength and make something move. So if you really want to make that ball move farther, you have to do different exercises to increase the strength of your legs, because all of your force on the ball in most other sports comes from being able to apply force into the ground and then express it back out through the golf club, the tennis racket, whatever it is. So if you're not training your legs and your core all the way up through your arms to be able to do that, you're missing a great opportunity. So then that becomes your base of your pyramid. I want to be a better golfer and hit the ball farther. So how do I do that? The next level of the pyramid are those specific movements you need to do that. So you're going to have some strength. You're going to have some rotational ability, some power movements rotationally. Yeah, you're still going to sprinkle in cardio. It's fundamentally foundational for overall health. It's going to help you out on the golf course, but it doesn't always have to be that same slow pace either. There's so many different ways of doing cardio. And I think a lot of times people overlook that, like make that fun. Maybe you want to go, I don't know if you remember the story of Zig Ziglar. He was an old school motivational speaker and he had a heart attack. And the story he always told about it was, after his heart attack, he said, my goal today is I'm going to get to my mailbox. And he did that for a little while because, all right, now I'm going to get to the end of my property. So, all right, now I'm going to get to the end of my neighbor's property. And he broke it down that way. And we don't think about situations where people are coming from positions where they're challenged to be able to do even the basic movements. Like, how do we get those people moving? So even breaking it down that way, but then after a while, maybe now he walks to his neighbor's mailbox, then he sprints to the next neighbor's mailbox. Maybe you walk 2 other mailboxes. Maybe you go laterally. You go side to side to the next mailbox. You just do different stuff just to integrate fun, make it different. Because the other problem we have with a lot of the exercise prescription we have is that it's mostly front and back, mostly front. Like over 90% of the movements we do are in one direction.
Sagittal plane, yep.
Sagittal plane, right? So if you look at it for most people when they're moving, like look at golf, look at tennis, look at gardening, look at all these things we're talking about, they're multiplanar. They move in every plane. And if I'm only training in that sagittal plane, I'm missing the boat. So how do I make sure in my program, and this is great for people who are creating their own program, like what are the movements that you do? Which ones do you feel good with? Which ones don't you feel good with? And I always tell my clients, like the things you don't like, those are probably the things you need. That's why I don't like it. It's like, I don't really like doing legs. Well, that probably tells you that your legs aren't as strong as they need to be. And you could do a fitness test and sure enough, you go, hey, look, your legs aren't as strong as they need to be for what you want to do. But that becomes like the second level. And then the next level is like just trying different things. Like, maybe you're focusing on golf now, but what else are you going to do? Like, what else is going to be fun around golf? Maybe you're at the golf course a couple of days a week. Maybe you go play tennis, pickleball, whatever it is, go swim. Just the other things that help to round out your program or your fun or that you're gardening or whatever it is. And then at the top, we want to be mindful to not be too physically inactive. But I think we also need to look at all the other things that help us to live healthy quality lives. Like, how do we look at our stress? Like, we only put the physical pieces in there, but we never consider the other pieces. Like, how do we make sure that we maintain gratitude? How do we make sure we reduce our stress levels? How do we make sure we reach out to others? Like all those other things that help to build us up, to help us live longer, that aren't necessarily physical, but they really should be part of that activity pyramid that we put together.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more because you touched so many important things over here. First of all, I want to highlight what you just said, that it's not just the physical health that people are concerned about. People are coming to me, they're like, I think you guys don't understand. By you, they're talking about fitness professionals, that, you don't understand that I don't operate in a vacuum.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have this 9-to-5 job, which is called 9-to-5, but it demands 60 hours of my week. I have 3 kids at home where I also have to chip in.
Yeah.
And the time I have left, I'm like tired.
Exactly. Right. So maybe you could do something at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do something with the kids and you're all getting a little physical activity. Or maybe that's the time that you practice some of the mental techniques, like even just going outside. Being outside has such wonderful health benefits, and we forget about that. I mean, when it's super hot out or super cold out, that might not be the best time to be saying, hey, let's get started on our outdoor program, because you have to build up to it. But, just looking at different ways that you can get everybody together to do that. The more people you get together, like with a family or friends, just something like that, it's always nice to have somebody to be on board with you to help you through that. Because not only is it fun to be with other people, but you have some accountability that way too, right? And for older folks, sometimes it's great to have that accountability. Like, you missed a couple of weeks. Are you okay? Like, what's going on? Just, checking in from a health perspective, a social perspective, and a mental perspective.
Absolutely. Means of motion. Sagittal is what we already do, practice, because we walk and get up and in and out of the chair. It's like front and back. So that's what Rick was talking about there. And then we have a frontal and or like lateral plane of motion where you can go side to side. And then the last one is transverse, where we have spinal rotation. And I think we all struggle with that because we start losing spinal rotation because we really don't practice it as often. But I think your analogy and example of people who play golf and or now pickleball had gained so much popularity. And initially, everybody was like on board with pickleball, but guess what? They were getting injured. First, they were not used to of that stop and go. Second, they have no spinal rotation, like they have no strength in their erector spinae, and they're all getting like, oh, I just hurt my back. Well, of course you did.
Well, of course you did. And that's the amazing thing, because you look at most of the exercise prescriptions that people get, they're either on machines in the gym, which are fine, or they're doing dumbbells or barbell work, but they're still moving only forward and back. So unless we're intentional about making sure that they move from side to side, I mean, there are machines that'll help you move side to side. There are machines that'll help you rotate, but making sure that you are getting all three planes of motion at some point in your program. Like, you don't have to make sure every workout you get it, but over the period of the program you put together, you should be capturing all three planes, different types of movements. Now they look at just the different fundamental movement patterns, right? So a squat pattern, a lunge pattern, a hinge pattern for lower body, an upper body and lower body push and pull, and then some type of core movement where you can brace, where you can rotate, and then also anti-rotate. Like, can you control your posture to not move when you shouldn't move? So you add all of those together, and then depending on the source you look at, they add one of my favorite things, which is grip, because when you're talking about strength, that's a great way to measure your longevity too. How's your grip strength done? Are you keeping that going? And then the other side is sprinting or running. Like, you're not going to say, hey, you're 80, congratulations, let's go out and see how fast you can run the 100. But, just to have you move faster than you're used to moving, even if you're on a treadmill and you decide, all right, normally I work 3 miles an hour. Maybe I try to get it to 3.2 or 3.3, just doing a little bit more than I usually do, then come back. Just to challenge your body in different ways, because again, with pickleball, all of a sudden you have to go for the ball. You're just used to walking at that same pace all the time forward. You need something that's going to help you when you need to all of a sudden react and respond and go, that you can. And then that's part of the problem with that. Besides the rotational part and the moving cross body and everything else, you just haven't practiced the skills you need. Back when we all grew up, we were active all the time. So you go pick up a racket and go play because you've been active. But now if you're not active, or if you're only moving in one direction with certain exercises, you're really not prepared for the rigors of that sport.
Absolutely. And I want to add to what you just said, that you should be able to sprint, not that, you're going for a time for your 100-meter dash or 200-meter run if you're doing that. But I actually was reading a research study yesterday in which they were talking about how a 100-meter sprint is the best way to produce most power from your muscles. There's no other activity that comes close to it.
Right. So again, getting back to the golfer, you want to be a better golfer? Sprint. I'm like, it doesn't mean you have to be sprinting at top speed, but there's so many great programs. Derek Hansen is somebody who comes to mind. Wonderful ideas on how to sprint, breaking it down into smaller sections. So you're not just going out running 100 yards, just because if you haven't done that in a while, it is far. It's amazing, because I hadn't run in a while and I went out and did it. I'm like, oh my God, that's far. But you could break it down into smaller sections. Maybe you start off with 10. And then sometimes you just start off like, can I get off the line quicker? Like, how is my reaction time? So if I want to get to a ball, can I? And tennis has lots of really cool drills that can be related to pickleball. And the pickleball groups have used some of those drills to do that. So there's a spider drill where you go like from baseline to each end of the net, straight ahead, different directions. So you get used to that. And then can you make that quicker? So it doesn't have to be like just sprinting, right? You could put it into the activity that you're doing. So for tennis or pickleball, you could do all kinds of movements on the court that mimic what you're going to do when you play, and that'll help you get better.
Great. This is all great advice. I want to explore a little bit more about, as far as cardiovascular strength is concerned, because for years, we have been taught as fitness professionals, and then we have also, kind of like given this back to our clients and patients that, well, you're supposed to do 150 minutes of aerobic activity. We're not taking into account that, some part of it should also be anaerobic. Some part of it should also be at a moderate or a tempo pace, as we like to call it in running world. So where do you stand with that? How can an everyday busy professional incorporate it into their lives?
Well, the good news with the guidelines was, we want you to hit 150 minutes, and the target was 30 minutes per session of moderate activity. But then, in parentheses or in smaller print at the bottom was also, hey, you know what? But any amount is good. So maybe, and at first they were saying, all right, so you need to have a 10-minute minimum, but it has to be at a higher intensity to get the same benefit. Well, now the research has come out and says, man, maybe not. As long as you're moving and doing something, it counts. So the cool part is, like, you can accumulate the 150 minutes in lots of different ways. So again, maybe you can take a walk lunch to be able to get that. There's lots of ways to look at it, but I think historically it's good to look at how this all came to be with all these recommendations. And when we first started to be able to put some of the parameters of how much exercise should we be getting, we looked at cardio, because what was our number one killer? Heart attacks, cardiovascular disease. So we have to figure out how to address that. We didn't look at it holistically from the mental part, the social, the emotional, or any of that stuff. We just looked at the physical part. But we didn't look and consider how other types of exercise might actually impart and help our cardiovascular system. So in the beginning, they thought that muscle strength, because you were squeezing a weight, was actually going to elevate your blood pressure and make it worse on your heart. And then the research finally said, no, that's not true either. So we had a time to get past that. But for the cardio, they said, all right, we have to quantify it. So aerobic exercise met certain criteria. It had to be smooth, had to be rhythmic, had to be continuous, and had to use large muscle groups. So then they could measure it. How can you measure it best? On a treadmill. You're right there, right? It was easy to track. I know that you're going exactly 3 miles an hour, for example. Whereas if you're walking outside, you might end up doing 3 miles an hour, but that's an average. A person who's out walking 3 miles an hour is going 2.6, 3.2, 2.8. So it goes all over the place, but it averages out to 3 miles an hour. So it was hard to quantify. So they use that to be able to do that. But for the person who's out just starting their workout program, just go, just do something, right? Maybe it's walking around your block. Maybe it's walking to a friend's house. Maybe it's going to a friend's house. Maybe it's going to the beach and walking on the beach, or maybe it's going to the park, or just, making it scenic, walking around the mall when it's hot or when it's cold. Like, just find a place where you can go and get some activity. You don't have to walk high knees, right? You can march, or just lift your knees up, get more of a range of motion when you're doing it. Maybe listen to music, right? So walk to the pace of the music, which feels really funny at first when you do it, but it's fun. And you don't have to be the whole song, right? But put some songs on that you really like. I had a client one time who loves Sousa marches, and she would go out forever as long as she had good old classic marching songs on. And she would go out there and then really get her heart rate up, because she really enjoyed those marches. So it's kind of cool, but just find out what it is that you like. Maybe you like stadium rock. All the songs you hear at the stadium, they really get you jazzed up. So, hey, put those on and get moving. Like, whatever it is, like, find something that makes it fun. And just, you don't have to go out and run. You don't have to go out and walk. You don't have to go out and sprint. But just, how do you incorporate those into different movements throughout the day? What you're doing, excuse me. If you have little kids, you're getting lots of running around, right? Because you're chasing after them all the time, picking them up, bringing them back. But for most of us, we don't have that all the time. So how do you integrate that into your program? And you could think about it in fun ways. Like, what are things that you used to do? You were talking about the sprinting and everything. Like, you see that most people do that, up through high school phys ed at least, or playing high school sports. But then that does tanks. Like, once you go to college, like, most people don't play sports. They don't do intramurals. They don't do any of that sports. And then by the time you get 24 or 25, now you're finished. You're starting your job, starting your career, starting your family, and then it tanks again. So all of these things that you used to do for fun are gone. So the only way to get on it sometimes is to do that. And, when we were at the conference, we're marking at the zombie apocalypse in the cardio room. Like, somebody coming in from somewhere else who doesn't know anything about our exercise structure, just watching people on a treadmill, kind of doing this. They have their headphones on. Nobody's talking to anybody. It's not social. It's really weird when you look at it, if you don't understand that they are trying to meet guidelines, and this is the way they figure that they can do it. They do have the TV on, or there's some music playing. So, but whatever it is, like, how do you create the environment, the atmosphere to make it fun enough to want to be able to continue to do it? Because, we still have drastic numbers. It's still like only 20% of the population are meeting the guidelines for cardiovascular exercise and muscle fitness, which is sad. It should
It
be
is
fun.
sad. Yeah.
So they want to meet it. Like you said, that's easy. It's not to the point where only 20 people are brushing their teeth, right? Everybody knows it's good for you and you do it. And it only takes a couple of minutes, a couple times a day. Do something exercise wise. We used to do like during football games, every time somebody scores a touchdown, you do 10 push-ups. Every time
Yeah.
somebody gets like just add fun stuff into other things that you're normally doing you don't think about, or you're watching TV at night, or you're watching the news. Every time a commercial comes on, do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can get your family involved. I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier too. Like you can get your kids involved if you have like kids who are like teenagers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like get them involved. The biggest problem, what I see with people is inconsistency.
Mhm. Yeah.
They have no problem doing it maybe on a Saturday afternoon when they have time, but then it's once a week and then they're not hitting the goals. The second thing that I notice is both with aerobic conditioning and or strength training, that there's a lack of progression. So you were talking about how men, and this is my biggest pet peeve with men because men don't like lifting legs. And I'm like, why not? Like, I understand that, you guys have better upper body strength and then you guys just keep on working on that. That's fine. But, training legs has a lot of benefits. A lot of, like, it actually improves your hormonal profile as you're aging. Most of the muscle mass actually resides in lower body. Like
Lower body. Yeah, right.
Yeah, your glutes and your quads are the biggest muscles of the body.
Yeah.
So you're completely
Best core
ignoring
exercise
them.
is weighted squats. So if you really want to build your core, don't be lying on the ground trying to do crunches. That doesn't do all that much. Do squats. Put some weight on it. It doesn't have to be sitting on your back. You can be holding a dumbbell across your chest or whatever just to get moving, just to do that. I completely agree with what you're saying there. And it is crazy. And I don't quite understand why people don't want to do all of those different things. But just, again, find a way that you'll do it. And the other thing is the all or none principle that, if I can't go at this full bore, if I'm not going to get my 150 minutes, I'm not going to do any of it. And that's unfortunate, but that's kind of our culture. It's like, yeah, this is what I need to do, and I can't quite meet that right now, so I'm just going to stop, and then maybe eventually I'll be able to get back into it. The one thing that we always wish we had more of is time, and just make use of the time you have now. And maybe you can't get that much in. Like I remember even like way back when I was in college, and I knew like finals are coming up, so I always made December a deload month. I would do just a quick 15-minute workout 2 or 3 times a week just to do something, but recognize I wasn't going to get to the gym with the intensity that I usually do. And it was terrific because all the things that exercise helps with for brain function and everything else. Like everybody stops working out when exams come around. I'm like, that's the worst thing you could do. Like that's when you need it the most. So why not figure out how you can get that together? And it's just interesting to me, like people's thoughts and reasoning about, well, I can't do it now because I'm too busy. No. Just do a little bit because, even mentally it'll help to keep the stress at bay a little bit just by getting something done. So that's a great point that you make there too, for whether it's aerobic, whether it's muscle fitness, whatever it is, maybe it's Pilates, yoga, whatever, just do some of it. Like I have a client who, when I would go away, he wouldn't work out until I came back. He's like, if you're not here, I'm not doing it. I'm like, all right. So finally I was having him pick exercises. It's like, I pick one and I'm like, all right, so here's the first upper body. Which one do you want to do? And then I highlighted those. I'm like, all right, I'm going away next week. These are the ones you picked. Do these 6 exercises, just one set. And he did it. So he finally found that if he just did his few favorite exercises, he would stick to it. And there were upper body, there were core. So we picked like 2 or 3 of each, upper body, lower body, and core. And he did those. So when I would go away, those are the ones I knew he would do while I was gone. And then he would be able to pick back up when we came back. So just something like that, like find your key, like you see trainers all the time, like these are the top 5 exercises everybody should do. I'm like, no, they're not. You need the top 5 exercises that you will do, and then pick those and then build off of that. So again, that becomes the base of that pyramid is here's what you will do. And then if you have time, add the other stuff.
Absolutely. That's golden. Because it comes down to, if you like doing that exercise, you're going to commit to it, versus if you're like already dreading looking at the exercise, you're like, I'm not going to do it. But the only thing is like you do need a well-rounded program that focuses on upper body, front chain of your body, back chain of your body. Back chain we don't like to train, of course, because we feel like nobody looks at us from behind.
Right? Those aren't the mirror muscles. Why do we do those? Yeah.
No, right? And then, lower body and core, of course. Okay, so how should our exercise goals and protocols shift as we move through different decades of life? You mentioned that a little bit earlier in our interview that, things change as you're going through life. Things change, goals change. What do you think? What can our listeners and viewers do as they're going through different decades of their life?
Great question. I'm older, and I think that everybody should change their mindset. The mindset is that based on the earlier research that we would lose strength every decade. We would lose cardiovascular fitness every decade. We would lose flexibility every decade. Do you know why we lost those every decade? Because we weren't doing anything. It wasn't a physiological response. It was a personal response because we no longer moved. Like, well, yeah, no kidding. You're not going to keep your strength up if you're not doing anything to get stronger. So the thing is are you not going to be able to do all the things you did before? Yeah, probably not. Like I still do most of the things I did before. I just need more time in between them. Whereas in my 30s and 40s,
recovery.
My recovery or like in between sets, I'll take more time in between a set or between different exercises or between times when I get to the gym. And that's fine. And that's the way that it should be, but I can recover. Just for fun, I think I could show you this. This is my expression.
There's no reason to be alive if you can't do I love deadlifts. I agree.
Right?
110%.
And there's like all these social media back and forth, like, oh, you really shouldn't deadlift, or if you do that, you should do that. I'm like, you know what? If you like to deadlift and that's what keeps your program going, deadlift. But we get sold all these things by these social media influencers and trainers that think that nobody should do this, everybody should do that, rather than saying individually, what do you like to do? For me personally, my deadlift was one of my worst movements, and it frustrated me. So I spent a lot of time working on it to figure out how could I make it better. So now it's one of my favorite lifts. So if you have that kind of a mindset, then go ahead and do that. But if you don't, what is it that you like? How can you make that better? When I was teaching phys ed, I would have my students do that. They wanted to play basketball. I'm like, all right, how can you be a better basketball player? Well, if I don't get pushed around under the boards, I would be able to be better. Like, how could you stop that? So then we figured out different exercises and movements, nutrition plans, sleep patterns, and all that stuff, just to improve on that particular movement ability, because that was what their goal was. So as we get older, unfortunately, life gets in the way. There's lots of stuff that happens, and sometimes we can't do what we always wanted to do, but we should always keep it in the forefront that it's not because we're getting older that we can't do it. It's because we're not doing it that we can't do it. So we have to figure out, like, how do we get back to doing it, even if it's a little bit? Like, there are going to be ebb and flows in our performance over time. Times you can get to the gym, times you can't get to the gym. I've had periods of time where I missed like almost a year a couple of times, but you know what? You just get right back up and you get to it when you can, and then it comes back. That's one of the great things about exercise. Like, if you go down a little bit, no worries, get back at it, and it comes back up. And then you can get even better. Like, some of my lifts now are better than they were when I was younger because I'm smarter. Like, I don't do the issues that I did before. I don't overtrain. I don't do too much like most of us probably did a long, long time ago following old bodybuilding workouts. And I also learned how my technique can be better, rather than just trying to muscle the weight up, right? You're talking about classic stuff the guys do in the weight room. That was me. But, I've learned. And so I think it's important for us to be able to do that. And then don't expect that everybody's going to be lifting the same or wanting the same results or doing different things. But I've worked with lots of golfers, for example. And once they figure out how deadlifts help with golf club head speed, boom, they're all in, right? So can you do that? Like, what are those magic movements that really help with that? Grip strength, right? Vertical jump rope, like all kinds of like fun different things that you can show that help with different things. Cross body movements, like all these different things, just put them together, make it fun. It doesn't have to be every day. You can integrate like a couple things a day. Because I think the other reason why people drop off, especially as you get older, like, all right. And I was this way before I started doing Strongman. That's why I have a Strongman shirt. I was bored. Like, I've been lifting since before I was in high school. It's like, all right, so me and my training partner, we get to the gym, like, what are we doing today? Oh, we're doing legs. Like, all right, great. What are we doing? Squats. I'm like, all right, what kind of squats are we doing? I'm like, oh, we've been doing that for like 20, 30 years. I'm like, what else is there? Like, how else can we move? So figure out a different way to do it. It doesn't have to be a squat in a rack with a barbell or with a kettlebell or anything else. So once we found Strongman, which is all different types of implements moving all around the place, there's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, that's lots of fun. But it doesn't have to be that either, right? It can be with the mulch in your backyard, or it could be carrying your groceries in all in one trip, right? Whatever it is that you can do to challenge your body a little bit, just to keep after it, no matter how old you are, just keep going.
Rick, that's a good problem to have. Getting bored.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a good problem.
It is, right? But I've had people where that happens too. They're like, I'm just so tired of doing the same thing. So you do have to change it up. And you do have to move exercises around, find different ways of doing it, find things that are more fun. Like we just kind of got bored going to the gym after a period of time. We needed a break and a shift.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally understand. So talk about your strongman competition and how did you get into it? Because I found it very fascinating. Before we go into that, though, I do want to highlight something you said. I think if we change what resides here in between our ears, we can change everything.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but we get fed the wrong information. And then we buy into it because that's what we see and we think that must be true. Hey, it's on social media, it's in the internet, it's out there somewhere. Like, hey, look at all the followers they have. They must be true. They look good, like they're in good shape. So just really look at the information, find a reputable person like you who knows that information and can help move people along. So yeah, I got involved in Strongman actually through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. We had a state clinic. Most of the states in the U.S. put on a state clinic, and there was in New Jersey. It was at their state clinic, and there's a guy who had all this equipment in his backyard. And so he did a demo of different pieces of equipment. We did tire flips and dumbbell lifts and all this crazy stuff. I'm like, gosh, that looks pretty cool. Like, I didn't try it at the clinic itself, but I talked to him afterwards. I'm like, you say you have this at your house? He goes, yeah, you should come over and try it. So me and another guy who was at the clinic said, all right. So a couple of weeks later, we went to his house. It's like an adult playground, like all the different stuff that he had there. Like, this is so cool because it's so different from anything else we'd ever done. I was hooked. So like just using all that, and that was probably 10 years ago that we started doing that. And so we've been doing that ever since. And it's kind of changed my whole perspective on training. So, down my physical activity pyramid is strongman at the base. And then the cardio that I need, because a lot of strongman is like, how long, like how many times, how far can you get in a minute? How many lifts can you do in a minute? So there's a lot of cardio in strongman, which most people don't really think about. So all these different things you need to be better at this particular sport. You better have pretty good hip mobility to be able to get down to get an Atlas stone off the ground and pick it up and put it where it needs to go. So just all the different things that you would need to be able to make that happen. Strongman's really cool. It used to have just one masters category, 40 plus, and all the different sports. Like the ages for masters is different. I think swimming, which is really interesting, if I remember right, is like 25. Like masters swimmers are young, right? They're very young. But, most sports, I think masters are 40 plus. But Strongman has 40 plus, 50 plus, and now has 60 plus. So as more and more people have been lifting longer and longer, they start creating categories so you can be competitive within your age group. And it's really exciting. And people in the older age groups, they just bond. You're getting together with people like kind of in similar situations, have, different aches and pains and whatever, and you figure your work around and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. But you're also there with those who are younger. You're all training at the same time. So it's men and women, teenagers, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and then older. So it's just kind of cool in that way. Then, different from in the weight room, but a lot of times you're just by yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my workout here. Maybe you have a trainer, which is great because at least you have somebody you can talk to for an hour while you're training. But, Strongman, it's a community. It's a group of people who all get together, share everything that's been going on. And the other thing with Strongman is nobody's good at every lift. Some lifts favor taller people. Some lifts favor shorter people. So some lifts favor those who are fast, right? So like it depends on what the different movements and events are. So that makes it kind of equalizes a little bit too, I think, to see who can rise to the top with your limitations and your strengths. So, it's the other thing that I was talking about with the strength training and exercise in general. We always look at it from a deficits-based perspective rather than a strengths-based. So we always say, oh, you're not getting 150 minutes, you should do that, rather than saying, hey, you know what, you really like to walk, go walk. right? Hey, you really like to do this exercise, do that one, and then figure out how you could build up the other ones. So rather than looking at it from what we do well, we always look at, well, you're not meeting this, so you should go do that. And it's kind of a defeatist way of looking at it for a lot of people too. So I think that should help.
But sounds like the strongman competition and just getting ready for it and training for it is like your playground, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I look forward to every Sunday. That's when we do our big lifts together, and then we do our supplemental lifts throughout the week. But yeah, that's my
Wonderful.
social time, my time of getting together. And then, sometimes you're doing things you're really good at. Other times it's things you're challenged by. And so we all just encourage one another, and it just makes it a really fun environment.
And community helps a lot, right?
Yeah. And that's
So
why,
that-
that's why group exercise has been popular. The yoga, Pilates, all those different activities where you get together. Pickleball, like it's a community, right? So it is a social scene. So for those who are considering what they're going to do, the commitment and the word I'm looking for, it's blocking in my mind right
accountability.
now. Accountability. That's yes, thank you. The accountability, right? To be able to say, hey, what they're counting on me. Like we're playing a foursome today, and they only have 3. I'd better show up. Or, if we don't have at least 4 people for our group exercise class today, they won't hold it. So I have to be there to make sure that class goes on. So sometimes that's very helpful to have that accountability and just knowing that you're part of that group. But it doesn't have to be. Like some people would rather be alone, and that's fine, right? So I know tons of people have been going to the gym for years and years and years, and they just like to do that. There's like their own little people that they say hi to when they come in, and that's great. So whatever it is, though, I think that's a really cool thing about exercise, and I love to tell this story. Wherever you go, exercise is like the common language, right? So I teach in Iceland, and I go up there like in September every year. I've been up there like almost every month, and every time I go into a weight room and a gym, like it's the same wherever you go. The music's the same, the camaraderie's the same, just the thought process, who's getting a protein shake or who's doing whatever. But it's just like this environment, this atmosphere that resonates wherever you go. And I think it's so different from so many other things that we do to see that in so many different cultures. So wherever I've been, I'll go to a weight room, and it's so cool to see how that culture just seems to go wherever you are and helps people to keep moving.
Absolutely. That is wonderful. And I'm so glad that you get to make out to Iceland every year and
I love it.
there too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Rick, thank you so much for sharing all of this information with our listeners and viewers. Where can they find you if they want to learn more about you and reach out to you?
Gosh, I guess like everybody anymore, like you're able to be found on social media. So all my social media is the same, so it's easy. So it's RI Howard 41. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. What am I missing? Yeah, so that's an easy way to find it. You could use that same RI Howard 41. That's my Gmail. So if you want to email me, you could email me that as well. So I just made it simple. So I'm relatively easy to find. Always happy to have conversations based around fitness, exercise, training kids, strength and conditioning, and finding that common language.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for helping us find this common language and also breaking some barriers here. So thank you so
I do it
much.
every year before my stress test, so I know I'll do well.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.